So welcome to a little deck guide here, a little Nightmare Roots combo DT deck. Came in second place daily tournament, 980 points. Wanted to give you a little background about this deck, a little discussion about the deck, and of course a card by card. So the theory here about this deck is that Karkass is just an absolutely bonkers card, should be DT banned. And so how do we take advantage of a card that's insanely good? Now, 9-4, I think, as a vanilla 3-star is debatably good enough to run already as is. But this ability is just insanely good. It makes opponents have to play around it in such varying ways that makes their actions predictable. So they play around Karka so much that you can really predict and get all the matchups that you want. So the idea here is that Karkas is so good, so how can we um, create a deck that functions around all the strengths and just the absurdness of the card that Karkas is. You could totally go Mono Nightmare, which is something that's super valid. Then you get the Unison card. You can throw in, replace these four with four other nightmares that you see fitting. I would take it in a different direction because my first thought was just to splash Karkas into a deck. Maybe I run seven of one clan and then Karkas, or six and Oculus and Karkas. The thing with Oculuses is very few of them are DT playable, and many of them that are DT playable are not good. So I think it was Rodzi and like one other playable Oculus Nightmare card. So then after looking at all these clans, I thought Roots had the best synergy with Nightmare and had three very playable DT cards. You also have this combo of Stop Opponent bonus and Stop Opponent ability, which actually play really well together because depending on the card you're up against or the scenario you're up against, sometimes SOB is really good and sometimes SOA is really good. So kind of the idea here is that Karkas can really help determine matchups. It's a pretty low star DT deck at 15, so you're going to be going second a lot. And the way Urban Rivals works is there's 24 different combinations in which your opponent can play their cards, and there's 24 different orders. With Karkas, a lot of times you're reducing that to six options, right? If you're going second, they're not going to lead the card that's symmetrical to Karkas, which means they have three options. And likely in the second round, they're going to play the card that is symmetrical to Karkas just to guarantee you don't get that ability off. So they've got three options to play in the first round. They've got one option in the second round, two in the third round, one in the fourth round. So they really only have six options to play around with. Three of those are in the first round. So you can really get your favorable matchup round one. And then in the other three, you can really dictate the matchups that you want. And I think SOA and SOB in tandem really bolster that strategy of eliminating your opponent's options. So that's the goal. Now, why am I playing these specific cards? So the goal of DT is to win the game while having the fewest amount of stars possible. The way the scoring system works is when you win, you get a number of points deducted by two times the number of stars that are in that hand. When you win individual matchups, you get points based off of kind of the difference between your stars and your opponent's stars. So even if you lose a round, you can still get points by winning low star matchups. So the goal of DT is to have as few stars as possible while still being able to win games and compete against people that play super high star decks. You'll notice that I play only semi-evolutions. That is just a symptom of this deck and the way it's constructed. I do think semi-evos are insanely good, but having eight of them is a little bit of an oddity. So first here, Diabolus 8-1, conditional 8-4. One thing I talked about that hold the whole different number of combinations your opponent can play in, that also holds true to cards with confidence or with growth or degrowth or reprisal, or asymmetry to some extent, right? So you really want to limit the number of cards you get that, right? If you have two growth cards in the same hand, you're being very predictable with what you're probably going to do. So one of us, an 8-1 1 star is like fine, but the 8-4, and you're gonna get it off a lot. You're gonna win, one round at least in the first three. So you're getting this ability often. And an A1 star A4 with SOB is just absurd in DT. Karkass is kind of the namesake, the purpose of the decks. I talked about that. Oshitsun, there are quite a few different cards I was considering here, which I'll talk about later. But it's essentially an 8-3. Um, there's this whole discussion about increasing your power versus decreasing your opponent's power. If this guy goes up against a seven attack guy or a seven power guy, the power reduction is way better. Having four power against your opponent's three power is way better than your eight against your opponent's seven. It's equivalent to your eight against your opponent's six. So in that ways, power reduction is good. Power reduction is generally better than power increase. The one asterisk to that is attack manipulation, but because we have SOB, this low power only gets affected by abilities with attack manipulation, which can be canceled out by the roots, or because this is the only card really with that specific scenario, there are ways to play around it. Next, my least favorite card in the deck, and I'm going to go over some options that I'm heavily considering instead of Tamaguchi. The idea here is like attack manipulation is so good. I think attack manipulation, besides, I think stop opponent ability is the best ability in the game, second to attack manipulation. So trying to find a nightmare or a route with attack manipulation was a goal. 5 damage is also a lot. And there's kind of three different ways that you can win Urban Rivals matches. One, if you win 3 rounds, you're generally just going to win the match. Then there are some decks that are like, I can just win 2 matches and win that 2-on-2 because I've got higher damage dealers. And then most decks generally play for the I'm going to win 2 rounds, but I'm going to dictate which 2 rounds I win over my opponent. And so I'm going to win the favorable 2 rounds, and that's how I'm going to win the game. With this 5 damage, it's you're heavily favored in this lower star environment if you can get off 5 damage in one turn. So I really like the 5 damage for 3 stars. You have some attack manipulation. The 6 power isn't very good, and the growth. One thing, Sun Tzu's Art of War, every strength is a weakness, every weakness is a strength. A lot of people don't expect you to play this like round 2 or round 3 because of the growth. And so you can catch some opponents off guards by not taking full advantage of the ability, but still getting that attack manipulation. Rodzi is not great. An 8-2, it's a more consistent 8-2 than Diabolus, but like an 8-2 1 star SOB, SOA, it's like fine. It's nothing great, but it's really just to trigger and be able to play 2 different clans. And as far as playable Oculus and DT go, Rodzi's actually pretty good. Next, we have Amadeus, absolutely absurd card. Basically a 2 star 9/4. Once again, the abilities are way more likely to go off when you're playing as a Roots or a Nightmare because you have SOB and because you have SOA. So this card is only not getting off their ability against Roots um, or the other SOA clan. So ability is very likely to happen, and a lot of people play mono decks in DT. So sometimes it's a 7/4, which isn't great, but it's okay for a 2 star. But a 9/4 SOA 2 star is absolutely absurd. Fungus similar, a 1 star 9/2. Yeah, somewhat conditional with the asymmetry, and you kind of do want to get that asymmetry off, but asymmetry is very easy to get off, and you can guarantee getting it off every game. Next, we have Collegia. I'm kind of on the fence. The attack manipulation is not as good in DT because you're playing against lower star cards that have lower damage. So in EFC, this is probably, +8, +10 attack type ability. It is EFC banned. But in DT, it's like a +4, +6 attack ability, which is fine. It's not amazing, but the 8/4 base stats are pretty good, and SOA is really good. So these are the cards I decided to play. There are a few cards that I'm considering and adding that I wanted to talk about. First and foremost, we have Gunslinger. I'm going to talk about that later. I'm going to talk about the Nightmare Replaces Swords. So actually, Cutie, this is a crazy pick, and when I was going over the cards to consider, I was surprised at how drawn I am to Cutie. The +1 life per damage makes this essentially a 6 with 8 life gap, and 8 life gap is huge in DT. If you win 2 rounds and one of them is with Cutie, you're gonna win that round. Now, 6 power, no attack manipulation. It's going to be tough to win that round, but if you do win that round, 6/8's a lot. So comparing it to Tamaguchi actually appears somewhat favorably. Once again, you don't need to worry about pussycats because of the SOB. So you're just worrying about damage reducing abilities. But DT, a lot of damage reducers are banned in DT. So this 4 damage, when it wins, you don't need to worry about you winning but not getting the gap through because +1 life per damage is very reliant on your damage. You're basically doubling your stat there. I was with Fury making a 12 gap. Potential is scary. So scary card that was not initially on my radar, but I think is worth considering. Next, we have Pandora, and I think Pandora is deserves a slot over Tamaguchi. The A4 is really good in canceling power and damage modifiers. Now, this is less good in Nightmare because the power and damage you're not affecting Bangers or Uluwatu or All Stars or La Junta or Fangpai Clan. So You're just worrying about abilities here, which means this ability is dead most of the time, but I think it plays well with the Karkass of trying to get those favorable matchups, and maybe you get a favorable matchup with Pandora so that your opponent avoids Karkass, or maybe in trying to avoid Pandora, they play into Karkass. So this is definitely a card worth considering for this extra 3-star slot. Next, we have Slash. Slash is a conditional 4/4 -4 opponent power minimum 2. Card I was heavily considering. The problem is one, you need this confidence to go off. Here, if you don't get the confidence off, you're just dealing 1 damage, but you still have a wall at 8 power. Here, this card's unplayable without its ability. However, when it does have its ability, it's just a better version of Code Sheet Soon. However, they both do the same thing. And you don't really want redundancy. You want cards that do different things. And so it's kind of, you have to play one or the other, but I already have a confidence and I already have a growth card and an ASIM card and a plus attack for damage. So I'm already playing a little bit too much into conditionals. This is just an excess conditional, but this 1-star card is absolutely insane. The minimum of 2 versus the minimum of 3 is actually a huge deal. Minimum of 2, you can just knock opponent's cards out, and that 1 extra damage is very nice. Now onto the roots. Bishop is a card. Now I can't play it because this isn't a mono roots deck, but Bishop is absolutely absurd. The SOA, once again, that -4 power, opponent power minimum 2 is absurd. It's better than a 1-star 8/3. So Bishop's an absolutely absurd card, and I think down the road there is definitely a mono roots strategy. You play this, you play the Unison card, you play a few other roots cards, and I really wanted to build a mono roots card just because Bishop is that good. I also think I want to give a shout out to Rotana and Kiki. Ironically, their 4-star versions are both pretty much the same. This minimum one is slightly better than minimum 4, but it doesn't really matter. These are potential replacements for a Kalija, but they're not good enough. You're paying an extra star for guaranteed -4 damage and 1 more damage, which isn't quite worth it. However, this 8 damage is a lot, and I think there is a scenario in which you play exactly one Kiki CR, and you just kind of ice the game with a big 8/8 SOA guy. So I think that is a possible strategy. You raise your stars by 2, going up to 17 isn't bad, and you just kind of ice the game out. So I think that's something worth considering. Another thing to note about DT is you're trying to play as many games as possible in 30 minutes, which makes KOing better in this format because the faster you KO, the faster you can get into your next game. So there definitely are decks worth building where you're playing more stars and you're getting less points per game, but because you're KOing and you're playing against weaker decks, you can get more games in. And I think that's kind of the direction you would go. You throw in Kiki, you throw in Bishop, maybe you throw in Ratana as well. Like that's 3 of the 4, really 5 extra roots you need. I think you could cook up something along those lines. And then last but not least, you could totally not play roots and take advantage of Gunslinger, and absolutely another bonkers card that should be DT banned. All Evos are super good, super playable. I think I like the 3-star the best. This two, like you're getting 3 stats and you're subtracting an extra pill. Gunslinger is absolutely absurd. So there's another world, instead of playing these 3 routes, you play Gunslinger and 2 other Ghost Town. And that's also a deck worth experimenting. So there's some considerations for this deck. Now we are going to get into some games. So we're getting in with some games. I am joining late, so I'm not going to make a ton of damage here, but just to see how this deck works, some strategies behind it. We are going to get in and we're going to find a match. You do get some amount of points for how long your wait queue is. So that is a little consolation. Huge recommendation. Before you want to join a format, if you want to look good, like look at how the scoring works, right? The goal is to score the most amount of points in DT and to beat everyone else. So think about that as you are deck building. And we found a match here. We get to go second, which part of the game plan? Whoa. So let's see. I get the unison bonus here. We got 2 SOAs, 2 SOBs. Asymmetry here. Revenge. here. That's a very good matchup. That's a very good matchup. Copy opponent bonus. This is an absurdly good matchup as well. So they're gonna play probably this card. Wow. They're just throwing this. They know I'm gonna play this. Um, we're gonna go one pill here in case they try to one pill outdo me, but this is just a throw from him. Yeah, I'm totally fine with that. I'm up two pills. I'm only down one damage. So now we're leading out here. If I do this, and they're probably gonna play this, um, which is when we want to win. So we're gonna go three pills here. I really need to win with Amadeus. Doing this, the throw, and sets up this and guarantees that revenge. So this is not looking good for us. Levy, no pills is pretty devastating here. So we got a slight lead. I think if we win, ooh, no, that's eight damage right there. Eight brings me down to three. Amadeus with Fury does get me there. I'm also SOBing actually. So that's a max seven damage. Four, so I can guarantee a tie here. I do this with none. Five. If they Fury, seven brings me down to four. So I'm gonna do this, and I'm either tying or winning here. Um, yeah, I'm winning. Cool. Another thing to note is you only get bonuses for excess pills if you KO, and it's only if you have at least one bonus pill. So sometimes if you know you're going to KO, then you want to leave that one pill remaining. Here we took down a nice win here. So I guess I should have played one pill in the last round. If I had scoped that math out more. A cool win, 86 points there. 86 points per fight is gonna take you far in a lot of DTs. Okay, we actually have a pretty high star hand. We're going first, which is not good. Um, and we're not getting our bonus here. We actually are just gonna play this out. Let's go two pills. I don't like any of these matchups. The Kea Oshitsune is pretty good. I'm expecting this to just get rid of the symmetry, but because I'm going first, they have two opportunities to make sure they don't get the Karkass energy. So they're free to play anybody. They have two characters that benefit from defeat, but I'm really happy with the outcome of this first matchup. Getting this in here, five would potentially ice the game. So I'm interested here. I'm playing this guy, and I think I'm just okay taking the loss. So there's a debate that I should play one pill. He played one pill last time, though, which means he's probably not going to play no pills. Coming up here. So we're going to deny the pill. And there we go. All right, now it's going to turn into a 50-50 game real quickly here, I believe. Although confidence, yeah, if I do this, then they're not getting the confidence, and the most they can do is six. So I think here, no pills. We're here with enough to win the next round. Let's see, eight times eight is 64. 64 there, so I'm going two pills on Karkass. Um, yeah, we will see. If they play Kea, I'm in a great spot. And they got to be scared. So this is interesting. This is kind of one of those 50-50 mind games. And it looks like I won the mind game if I did my math correctly. Cool. So we are taking this one down yet again. I did the math. I'm not going to worry about the daily challenge, and I'm going to make sure that I just play the maximum pills. I could have done the math to perfect pill. Once again, you're just trying to win as many games in half an hour as possible. So the math that it would take for me to do the calculation to go towards that mission is not worth it. Getting right into the next one. Two fights in, 80 points a fight is going to take you far in DT. So let's see here. Maybe we'll get in one or two more games just to showcase the deck, what it can offer. We saw some Karkass mind games there. Like it's really scared if you don't know if they're going to bluff with Karkass or if they're going to go all in. You don't want to play into it. I do think sometimes those mind games are a little bit too much and people overrate the ability, but it's an absolutely absurd ability. Hopefully we can get into a game here. Not many people playing DT um, at the present moment. So yeah, another benefit to this deck is the mission's current clan, Season 4 Roots and Nightmare. Nightmare, it's Reduced Life, which you get with the 1-star Diablos, and then I believe it's just complete fights with at least two Roots. So those are two missions you can be working towards, and then of course the win rounds with Oculus. It's actually three missions that you can be working towards on the Season Pass. Wow, we are waiting quite a while here. Unfortunate. Here we go, getting into a game. Pretty high star. Um, Rescue has kind of been eating this up a little bit. SOB is really good here. Damage reducer is crazy. We're going Rodsy if they play that. Slide isn't interesting. They're telling me they're bluffing, which would mean Collegia would be really good. 8-2. I'm gonna go two pills here. I'm getting that 4 damage in. Would be super nice. Unfortunate. I actually messed up there. I should have played one more or one fewer. I should have played one more pill. So we're probably losing this game. Going to Rodzi, one pill here, forcing them to play at least two pills. Um, we probably need to win the next three to win this. So unfortunate, bad play by me. I played the wrong amount of pills with the way the math worked out. Um, I was kind of expecting this in like a throw and a no pill or one pill. Okay. And now we're back and we have a chance in this matchup. So let's see. I think we need to win the next two. Um, let's see, 4-4. Yeah, we need to win the next two, which means I'm gonna want to get play this guy next. So here. Let's say if he goes no pills, 5, 6 times 8 versus 5 times 9. 6 times 8 is bigger. 6 times 8 here is 48. 48 plus 12 is, yeah. I think this is our only way we can potentially win. Um, so tough loss there. The other thing too is we're maximizing our points too. So even if we're gonna lose, we get this because our guy was two less stars, two fewer stars bonus, two fewer stars bonus. And then here, if I had played into the no pill, the 12 attack, whoa, throw. Okay, the SOB there. That's a gift. Had no business winning that round, but here we are. Cool. Okay. Super high stars and skills absolutely eats up this deck because we've got a ton of SOB, SOA. These cards all kind of suck, but I'm at such a star disadvantage that I don't see this going particularly well for me. Oshitsune eats up all of these cards. I have to win this, so I'm gonna have to overpill here. 3, so 12, 24. The 7 damage I just can't come back from. So I'm gonna have to overpill a little bit here. But we get the job done. It's our best card in this matchup. So now we have to play the confidence. We're expecting the revenge. The Kawi opponent, oh, protection ability anyways. So 7, 4 brings it down to 5. So we need to play this but enough where we can keep fighting. Amadeus is awful here. The brawl is no good against the tag team. Um, to you're never playing Damien here. Polo's just kind of a crappy card. So yeah, expecting the Donnie, and then we just got to win this matchup. Cool. That should be enough. That should be game. Protection ability against this, so 2 damage, 5, 6. But that replaces the poison. So I believe worst case we're tying here. So yeah, the only way we win is if he plays 1 pill here. Cool. And so that's how you take it down. So I will see you for the recap of this deck. You got a little taste of what this deck can bring. You got to see, all the 8 cards represented some strengths and some weaknesses. So I want to go over some pros and some cons of this deck list. First, the pros. The combination of SOB and SOA is absolutely insane. You can really help dictate matchups that you want. With that, in this low star DT environment, abilities are generally like really, really good. So getting these roots high power SOA cards are going to do really well. And then if they're playing kind of a Montana and uppers type deck, you have this SOB to kind of get rid of some pesky attack manipulation. With that, also Karkass really plays into that, getting the matchup that you want. And Karkass should be DT banned, and that was kind of the inspiration for creating this deck. Another pro with that too is the Oculus. So that kind of 2 and 2, you're helping getting different bonuses off, you're infiltrating, helps you kind of unbrick some pesky hands. Now, the cons of this deck also come with that. You are going to get that 3-win split sometimes. And your cards, especially the roots, are very vulnerable because without their SOA, these cards are a lot weaker, which is why it's maybe worth considering throwing in a 4th root instead of a 4th nightmare because the roots are a little bit more reliant on their bonus than the nightmare. But that's just a symptom of playing a 2-clan deck. Additionally, with that is that Skills absolutely destroys this deck. A lot of these cards' strength is tied to their SOB or SOA. So if you're playing against cards that don't care about SOB or SOA, so Skills or stop cards are more manageable because you can just play the Nightmare half against the stop card, but Skills, they're built to get their ability off, and so you're wasting one of their abilities and then just one ability against one ability. The Skills are going to always win out. Um, with that too. I think this card has got to go. I think there are better placements, but 15 stars is pretty low. You're going to get to go second. And you have some high damage cards as well, so you can compete against those higher star decks. I'm curious, there's like a really good Legenda DT deck and a few others floating around, so I'm curious to see how those would perform on that front. So thank you for watching.